Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Wolverhampton Wanderers won, Aston Villa won. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I think, I come on with a smile on my face. I just came on and I was like, I don't hate it. Don't hate it. Pretty good. It's a shame. Could have got a win today, but you can't have everything. We go into the international break, 5th in the Premier League. It's not too bad, right?
Could be a lot worse, mate. It could be a lot worse. Today's results, a bit mixed across the board, really. Only one win in the evening kickoff. I think it's safe to say that this is... Listen, we've not won at Wolves since COVID. This has been a long time coming. So the fact that we were able to get a draw, stop the rot, it's good. It's good. And I think... we sort of, again, as I kind of probably say too much, but I feel like Unai's learnt a lot from the players today and from the system that he's played. And obviously, Diego Carlos started in back-to-back games. Good to have him fully fit and back with the squad. We've seen Matty Cash deployed further up the field again today, which I thought was interesting. And, that little double of Cash and Console on the right-hand side to try and negate the sort of partnership of Ait Nouri and Chan, who were sort of causing chaos really for much of the game before they both went off with an injury. But I think the one thing I'd say, mate, I don't know how this looked sort of on broadcast or whatever. It felt like our defensive shape was a lot better, more so probably in the first half. But we've both said that this high line may not always work away from home, and Unai has clearly listened to the podcast because he's obviously a big fan, and has made us just look that little bit more solid. I think with Kashi and McGinn operating on the right and left midfield respectively, it just gave us a little bit more steel when we were sort of out of possession. What did you think about that, mate?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And you know what? There was a kind of moment where I kind of did a bit of a double take really with the lineup today, because I think it came out and a lot of people were questioning whether this was a 5. You're playing Torres, Carlos, Konza across the back with Dean and Cash as kind of the fullbacks. And then I kind of thought about it. I was like, no, it is going to be the kind of normal shape. But if you look at it today, we have on paper like 3, maybe 4 players playing out of position here. In Konza at right back, Cash at kind of right midfield, John McGinn on the opposite flank. And then you can make a case that Diaby in the kind of role that he is something that he's not necessarily played much of previously. So it's such a nod to what a great manager Unai is. I think that he's kind of carved out roles for these players that are so well defined and that kind of make the most of their abilities, that you almost, like, I'm seeing what Matty Cash is doing now at this position and how well he kind of like crashes the box and is arriving on the end of crosses and always looks a real threat kind of at the far post. And it just seems to suit him so much, like so well, when you've got like a really solid base like Ezri Konsa behind him that really allows him to get on and get into those boxes and try and finish off those opportunities. He has a really good chance saved in the first half by Jose Sal, which on rewatch, like the more and more you watch it, the more you realise it's actually a really, really good save. And Kashi's unlucky not to score there. But yeah, like the fact that McGinn's out wide and kind of he looks so comfortable, and look, like not every experiment is paying off. We saw McGinn kind of play left back against Everton for a little while and that certainly didn't work. But yeah, I mean, the fact that you kind of look at this team and where Unai has found roles for these different guys and how different the team looks compared to what it did a year ago, it's quite remarkable, really. And I think a lot of the guys that I've mentioned there, Konsa, Cash, McGinn, like, they're all playing really well as well. And I just think the whole thing is testament to the gaffer.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And I think the one thing that was evident for me today was playing twice a week is going to be very hard. This was quite the slog, it felt like, for 90 minutes. And I'm sure it did for guys like Dougie. Obviously, Booba was carrying an injury. Dougie obviously came on in the midweek game. John McGinn, again, just seems like he's the fittest man alive. But the guys looked tired. They looked a little bit leggy. So I guess it kind of means more in a sense that we were actually able to get somewhat of a result out of this game. I think that chance that you referenced there, mate, that cash one, that cross from Dean was just absolutely phenomenal, wasn't it? And there was one or two really good crosses that Dean actually played in this game. And it's funny because you sort of don't really miss Alex Moreno.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird to say because he was such an attacking threat. But, you know, to my point about, players looking leggy and that, I thought when, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but when Zaniolo came on as well, I just thought he really struggled. And he's not the only one. Again, I think pretty much everybody looked somewhat off the pace today. Ollie specifically as well, could really do with him not actually going away with England based on, the amount of football that he's played recently. I mean, knowing Southgate, he's not really going to start many games anyway, is he? So maybe we're safe in that aspect. But again, just to sort of reiterate, like, not a criticism because these guys have played an extreme amount of football, something that they're not necessarily used to, more so an observation, a little bit sloppy at times. But again, that in a way makes this draw just feel that a little bit better. And if we go back to this time last year, this is 3 points dropped.
No, well, absolutely, mate. And that was kind of the main point that I wanted to make on this podcast, is that in the context of everything, I really think this is a good result for us. I really do. It could have been more, and I think that's important to acknowledge. But like when you look at the kind of run that we've been on since, honestly, like that defeat at Liverpool, really, you kind of wind the clock back that far, and then you have Palace stick to the Premier League, Palace, Chelsea, Brighton, and now Wolves. And to take 3 wins and a draw from those games is pretty great. And when you consider that, we scored 6 against Brighton and the win, with a clean sheet at Chelsea, and these have been really good wins. So I think to take kind of 10 points from 12 and sit 5th going into the break is pretty great. And it also, we spoke about in the preview that Molineux, as you rightly say, mate, has been a really kind of real difficult place for Villa to go, no matter who the manager, what the team, kind of what the competition, really, because you're absolutely right in that the only win we've got against Wolves, period, home or away, since we came up to the Premier League was that 1-0 win away in the COVID year. And obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there were any fans there. So it's kind of got a bit of an asterisk next to it. I mean, we went and lost there as recently as May. This is something that even under Unai, when we were really starting to pick up steam in the head of last season, we still went and lost 1-0, and that was to a 9th minute goal, and we never managed to find a way back into that game. And we always tend to go to Molineux and concede first. And under Gerrard, when we went there, April 2022, we go 2-0 down, and I think Ollie Watkins scores a penalty in the 86th minute, and it was just too little too late. It's always been really, really difficult for the Villa against Wolves, and I felt that we were the better team today, and I felt that the way we got back into it so quickly, and this might be a good way to kind of chat about the goals quickly, is kind of testament to the fact that, we both said that this feels like a different Villa side, and whilst the barometer of how we judge that probably isn't necessarily going to be playing against Wolverhampton Wanderers, it is probably the one result that, if you were to single out a bogey fixture in all of the 38 league games that we'll play this season, probably is this one. And to come away from it, really, really unlucky not to pick up a win, but a draw, and means that we're still on a nice run, especially after the kind of the real grind that was Thursday night just a few days ago, and all of the boys that had come on at halftime that went on and played today. I think all of the context around it, it's a good point.
No, it is, absolutely. And I think from just looking at Wolves and especially how they beat Manchester City, Pedro Neto was so key to that. So it was going to be him somewhat involved in the creation of that goal, really attacking down that right-hand side. Again, it's a lot of people were sort of grunting and complaining and being like, it's Pau's side, this is that. Should he have been stronger in the challenge a little bit earlier on? Yes. But, if we're, really getting down to the nitty-gritty, there's just a really unlucky deflection that sort of takes it away from Dean, really, isn't it? And obviously it lands into the path of Hwang Hee-chan. And, when you're that close, almost impossible to miss. But that swift reply, mate. Only 1 minute. That's almost unheard of for Villa, isn't it? I know it felt like a bit of a game of tennis against Legia for about 10 minutes where, 4 goals were scored within that space. But it was good that we came back. And obviously it's good that it was Pau on the end of it as well. So gave him some atonement and obviously runs over to the fans, absolutely loving it. I'm sure he'll be having one of those paellas that he shared the other week tonight to celebrate that. But I mean, like the goal kind of, we could have had one or two like that. There was a Zaniolo shot sort of where the ball had sort of fell to him at the back post, literally just trickles a millimetre wide of the post. On another day, that could have been. And I think the reason we were able to score that goal is because we actually moved the ball quickly for once during the game. Ollie Watkins manages to get that cross and Pau, sticks a foot out, it goes in, they all count. But I felt, that switch was on so many times, but we just weren't necessarily that quick to it each time. And Wolves defended their box really well, very compact, made things very difficult for us. But one thing I will say, mate, and it drove me absolutely insane. Why are we playing crosses into the centre half when it's fucking Craig Dawson? The guy's like 6'5", eats them balls for breakfast, lunch and dinner. Like, why are we even entertaining that? Why? That's just frustrating. And I'm sure Unai would have known that, which makes it even more annoying that we just persisted to do it. If we're going to put a ball into the box against Michael Dawson, hard and low, please, guys. Then Ollie may have a chance. But, yeah, I mean, we created a lot. There was... I'm trying to remember any other chances. But, like, specifically in that sort of final 15 minutes, it felt like we really gave it a go. And obviously, the sending off obviously helped us as well. Some will say it's soft, but there was probably about 3 or 4 yellow cards that the ref didn't give throughout that game. Nelson Semedo comes to mind. Don't know how he lasted the full 90. Ait-Nouri as well, another one. He could have had multiple cards. Lemina was just the victim of the referee finally deciding to do his job. And I was trying to manifest that Zrinski Mostar comeback energy, but it wasn't to be. There's obviously the header right at the end as well, mate. Like, that hits the post. I felt if we played another 5 minutes, we would have won that game. But that's football.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a real shame, and it would have been so great for Ollie, wouldn't it, after like the signing the contract earlier this week to kind of top it all off and go away with England and the call up and everything. It just would have been a really nice kind of round up to club football for him, but it just wasn't to be. But yeah, like, I think we had, we've used all our football. We looked to the football gods once already this week, and they smiled down upon Villa Park and blessed us with that 94th minute winner. You don't get to in a week. You don't. It doesn't happen, unfortunately. But yeah, it was a shame. Like, Zaniolo's one is kind of really close as well. And ultimately, I thought we pressed really, really well, and just were really unlucky kind of at the end of the day. I think, especially when you consider Wolves' result against Man City and like how clearly well organised this side has been under Gary O'Neill. Like, we pointed out that by and large, their home form has actually been pretty good this season, considering where they are in the league. Like, it's not an easy place to go for anybody. Just beat the champions of England pretty comfortably, and it's one where I thought that we kind of posed our own problems, and I think maybe that kind of is a nice kind of tag along to what you were saying, mate, about crossing, in that it's not easy to break these guys down. And so sometimes like that is what you resort to, and even as illogical as it seems at times, maybe it's a nod to just how kind of well-drilled that Wolves back line can be at times. And so, yeah, it's one where you're right. It's a good point in that we've got a fair few boys heading away on international duty, from Zaniolo to Tielemans to Torres to Watkins. A lot of these boys are going away. And so I agree in that probably some rest would have been nice, but we've been wanting these things for a long time, and we're blessed with so many international players. And so I suppose you got to take the rough with the smooth, don't you?
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I mean, listen, 1.61 expected goals, 54% possession, 18 shots, 4 on target, 10 corners, 19 free kicks, 15 throw-ins. Wolves had one thing and one thing only that they intended to do, and that was just spoil and frustrate. And that's exactly what they did. And it works to a certain extent. I think both sides would have been happy with the point. One thing that we've neglected to mention, mate, the aforementioned penalty shout. Ollie Watkins hits the side netting and is shoved by Matt Doherty. It's one hand, still a shove. I'm very surprised it wasn't given. Now, there was a couple of other shouts, probably for free kicks, that, again, felt very surprising. Ollie didn't seem to get no decisions at all. And I mean, his first touch probably didn't help him in most aspects, if we're being completely frank. But surprised that wasn't given.
I think do you ever feel that like players are punished often for taking the shot? That they feel like because they've gone on to have the attempt at goal that it's not stopped. Like, I almost feel that it kind of, if Ollie is shoved to the extent where he either doesn't try to take the shot or like misses the ball or whatever, then it's going to kind of get looked at. But because he's got a decent shot off and it's kind of hit the side netting, I almost feel that like they sort of view it as almost like you've kind of played advantage, even though you're not the falling one. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at here, in that like you still got the kind of desired outcome. And I kind of feel that you see that with a lot, and you see it sometimes with, like, if a player's taken a shot and it's like been saved and gone out for a corner, but like someone trying to block it comes in afterwards and like cleans them out, it's not kind of given as a penalty because they got the shot off in the first place. It's a weird kind of caveat, and yeah, it really comes down to these fine margins of what's clear and obvious and what's going to be overturned. And as you say, it's only one arm. Maybe if there was two, it would have been different. It's probably one of those ones that's really on the cusp. But yeah, I think that's kind of what it comes down to, that because Ollie gets the shot away and it's not a million miles away, which is, you know, testament to Ollie more than anything, that's probably what's kind of gone against him. And we had that in the Zrinski game, where Zaniolo's getting his shirt pulled running into the area. And because he doesn't go down and tries to play on, we don't get the penalty. But if he goes down, it's a stone wall penalty. So you kind of come around to the, you know, it's this chicken and egg situation where if players don't go down, they get penalties. They don't get penalties rather. But nobody wants to see them do that. So yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a shame, but yeah, pretty right on the cusp.
Yeah, I mean, it happened like last week, didn't it? With Forest Brentford, Matt Turner just completely takes out Visser, and Visser is almost penalised because he tried to get up and see if he could have a shot on the open goal. That was as stonewall as it comes. There was actually the guy in front of me at Molineux was a referee. Sounds like it was just like junior level or whatever, but he was going through like every decision and like explaining it to us.
That's quite helpful, actually.
It was, yeah. And to be fair, he managed to remain fairly unbiased despite wearing claret and blue. I felt like he was the decisions that he was calling that necessarily weren't getting given or were, you know, I felt he was being quite objective.
There was the one with Dougie, wasn't there, where that got checked for a long time for a potential red card.
I missed that. What happened there?
So
did Chan just sort of throw himself?
It actually kind of happened twice, and I think that's why it got looked at more so the second time. So Dougie's kind of thrown, and like, not, I don't think intentionally, but it's kind of one of those where his arm is in a weird place and he's thrown it back. So the first time he did it, and it popped Chan's nose. So like, I had to go and get his nose cleaned up. And then it kind of happened a second time again. And it's one of those where you've seen them given. Like, I don't think it was an intentional, and I almost feel that it was almost because it had already happened before and it was a kind of carbon copy. They took the second one a little bit more seriously. And there was a time, given the amount of time that they watched it, that I did think it was going to get given. And so, yeah, I mean, in the light of your good friend in front of you staying unbiased, I just thought it was one to raise.
No, absolutely. And I mean, there was the whole debacle at the start of the game, mate, with Craig Dawson and John McGinn. I mean, how Dawson avoided a booking there. Just constantly shoving McGinn, trying to... I understand, you know, you're trying to generate space, trying to generate power, you want a strong run on, but like, it's just... I cannot believe the referee let that play out for what felt like 5 minutes before the corner's like actually taken, and there were no bookings. And there was people around me going, McGinn's going to get himself sent off. no, he's not. Like,
Yeah.
he was quite clearly being fouled by Craig Dawson. And of course,
Yep.
McGinn's going to be sort of waving his arms about and he'll give it back a bit. But like, there was no, at least in my mind, there was no way that Guinea was ever sort of
No, I agree.
leading it on play there. I mean, Dawson managed to get booked in the end, didn't he, for a foul on Ollie? But that just blew my mind. And that's another thing as well. Why is John McGinn marking Craig Dawson on corners? I will never be able to get my head around zone marking at all. Someone as powerful in the air as Craig Dawson, that just doesn't make sense to me. And shouldn't really be allowed to make that mismatch happen. But Unai and Austin McPhee know a lot more about football than I do, so happy to firm that one. But yeah, just to reiterate, happy with the point on the roads. And I mean, I was looking at the fixtures and I'm thinking, okay, we've got a nice little run of fixtures, but it's West Ham, first game back. That's going to be a little bit tricky because, I mean, they've had quite the start to the season, haven't they, mate? And I mean, a 2-2 draw to Newcastle today as well. No mugs, are they, mate? Absolutely no mugs.
Yeah, it's good that we've got kind of 2 weeks to look at that one because they're so well drilled and that they're such a kind of physical team and they're a really difficult kind of matchup for anybody really. And so it's a game that we're going to have to be on our best for, and we're probably going to have to figure a little bit out. But they're absolutely deadly from set pieces. So if we are going to get anything from that game, that's certainly one area of today's performance that we might have to take a little look at.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. But we've got a few weeks before we preview this one. So, guys, you're going to want to make sure that you are subscribed to the channel if you haven't already, because there will be content coming out through the international break. Dan and I may do a live stream, so we'll keep you guys updated with times and dates and stuff like that. So you guys can all make sure you hop in. And yeah, let us know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. If you're listening on Apple and Spotify, make sure you follow, leave a 5-star review, share with a friend. It helps a lot. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.